Good morning, everyone. I hope this is finding you well. Wherever in the country this finds you, make sure to say good morning, hello, and let me know what's happening. So I'm just seeing a bit of a light flashing here, which is telling me something's not quite right. So I'm just going to check that very quickly. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, say... Would just be lovely to hear from you. Say hello, tell me where you are. If you are anything like me, this is what you are seeing this morning. This is the fog outside St. Heliers, where I live. I mean, photos never do it great justice, but that's the rather foggy morning that we have. So yes, so quite a lot to discuss today. But as I say, first and foremost, welcome to Solid Ground. It is wonderful to have you here. Solid Ground, as you know, if you've been following this for a while, is talking about the issues of the day, those that cross my mind in particular. And it's just an opportunity to talk through them over the next half an hour, and importantly, to take your thoughts and questions. So you can be following this across a number of platforms. But the best place to get messages directly to me is via the Family First page itself. So if you jump onto Family First's Facebook, you'll see this live. Comments there will come straight to me because I can see them at the moment. Christine and Brendan say g'day. I've got Michael saying hello from West Harbour, and Rosie, good morning from Taupo. Lovely to have you guys here. So wonderful. So look, just keep in touch there with your thoughts and questions. And we'll be... Sorry, now there's voices outside. It's all go here this morning, despite it being completely and utterly foggy. I've got lights flashing on my screen, which probably tells me, and I hope... Do let me know if this stream is not coming through clearly. I'm beginning to think there's some issues with our connection this morning. And I think it's to do with the piles and piles of workmen which are outside my house. Which has got something to do with neighbours, but that's a different question. So yes, Solid Ground, we talk about the issues that matter. Look, breaking news, well, it's in the last few hours. This is President Biden, or rather former President Biden's pick to be his running mate or potential vice president. His name's J.D. Vance. He's a senator from Ohio. I think he's probably much more raconteur looking than myself. So senator from Ohio. He's an interesting character, as in very, very good, actually. I shouldn't say interesting. The interesting part about him is he's often noted as being quite a strong opponent of Trump's in the past. But in the last few years, he's certainly kicked in behind now former President Trump. Look, he's from Ohio, as I say. That's one of the swing states. Which means it could go Biden Democrat or it could go Republican and Trump. So I think amongst many reasons he's been selected because he's a very popular senator in that very critical swing state. Importantly too, he describes himself as a Christian, a husband, a father. He is very consistent on a lot of moral and ethical issues. I think amongst other things, he's made sure that gender affirming care, that euphemism for doing terrible things to children, doesn't happen. He's relatively good on the pro-life issues. So I would have to say, from my very early reading, because I don't know him well, I've never met him, but in the early readings about him, it's a good pick and a good man. But part of the political reason for choosing him, of course, is it's a swing state. Because one of the other people... So I've just seen a comment coming through, which I think if I press this one, hold on, they're saying running mate, not... So Christina or Brendan are noting that I called him the VP, as in the Vice President. Yeah, he's the VP pick are for President Trump, but he won't be the vice president, of course, until he's selected. So yeah, he's Trump's running mate for VP. So I think we might be both right. So yeah, interesting choice there. But of course, it's all about Trump this week, and I suspect it will be for a lot longer. There is obviously this. This is probably the image of the year. I would suggest from the Associated Press. I've forgotten the name of the photojournalist, but obviously a remarkable photo, which in many ways sums up the terrible events that actually happened, of course, the assassination attempt on Trump. So I say, though, it's an amazing picture. I mean, there's a man who's just been shot. Fortunately, just hit him in the ear. Could have been so much worse. Obviously protected, but there he is, standing defiant, fist in the air, American flag. You couldn't choreograph that any better had you wanted. And to really stress, that was just a random photo. So quite remarkable. Look, what happened there, the assassination attempt, absolutely terrible. In fact, I'm just going to be selfishly, if you want to, you can check out my initial thoughts. I wrote some down on my On Point Substack, so that's substack.com. If you look for On Point, you'll see that a few hours after the assassination attempt, I wrote just some thoughts on what was happening. Look, just to share them really quickly with you, it was an assassination attempt. The fact that it took media so long, or a lot, so not all, but a lot of mainstream media, hours to work that out is, well, in some ways it's beyond comprehension. But at the other side, it's just, I'd argue, a terrible bias at play. That they waited that long. I mean, it's only speculative, you can't prove this, but I have no doubt if it was Biden, they would have been on it in a heartbeat, declaring it an assassination attempt and so forth. But here they were suggesting that, Trump had tripped over or fallen over, or they heard some just light popping sounds. If you've ever heard gunfire, you know what it sounds like. So that was bad. Look, fortunate he was not killed. I've been disappointed by some people. It's not actually commentators as much as just people you're seeing through the likes of social media, including here in New Zealand, disappointed that he wasn't killed. And I think that's just absolutely shocking at so many levels. Obviously, regardless of what people think of Trump as a person or Biden, they're human beings. And so I'm quite disgusted, actually, when anyone is saying, well, it's a pity it wasn't an inch closer, or so forth. I think it's terribly disrespectful. Obviously, the act of violence tried against Trump has now seen a young volunteer firefighter and father and husband killed. So that's the first point. You don't wish death on any human being. Secondly is Biden himself has said, I think quite articulately, you solve these problems in the ballot box, not by bullets. So again, for those who think violence is okay, that's just a major problem. But I've noticed it particularly, not exclusively, but particularly coming from our young people, and that's why I wanted to raise it, is because actually this is the logical conclusion to what they've been indoctrinated with in schools. So when you think about it, they've been told that you have to have very singular issues on life issues, the Treaty of Waitangi, all of this stuff. You can only have one view, and anyone who has a different view, you are to deride them, decry them, deplatform them, and so forth. You're meant to get rid of them, not allow them to speak, sack them from their jobs, hound them from their homes. This is the modern woke culture, and it's all around us, sadly, in New Zealand. You see it all the time of people being harassed for their views. But it doesn't take much of a thought to jump to the next stage, that these same indoctrinated twits think, well, actually, maybe I should just remove the person I don't agree with. So in other words, what I'm saying is that, moving from deplatforming, cancelling speech, it's a couple of steps away, but actually you can see how some, particularly those who are a bit unbalanced, go, well, actually, why don't we just remove the person? And as I say, in recent days, when you've heard, particularly the young, but not exclusively, talking about how it would have been better had Trump been killed, that's just deplatforming at a different and more violent level. And also, I might just add, had Trump been killed, I think we'd seen America in a much, much worse state now. In fact, I think remarkable restraint. And I write about this again. Gosh, it's just like plugging my materials everywhere, isn't it? But when I wrote on this on Point, so again on Substack, I pointed out, a lot of the commentators have derided Trump supporters as lunatic, right-wingers, gun-toting, prone to violence and thuggery. Interesting, isn't it, though, is it not, that after the assassination attempt, there have not been riots, burnings, lootings, and so forth. In fact, things have been relatively calm. 2 points. The first is, I think had Trump been assassinated, could have been quite a different kettle of fish. And secondly, it's, I speculated about it in the op-ed, but I doubt had this been an assassination attempt on a Democrat, if things would be quiet. I suspect those cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles and others where you saw Black Lives Matter, etc., they'd be ablaze at the moment. So it's just fascinating what's occurring in all those spaces. Just going to grab a couple of comments because I can, and always like to get your comments. So, as I say, good morning. I've got Viv telling me that she's in Tairua, a calm one. And well, as I posted earlier, I just put this as my one up here. We are talking a very foggy morning in Auckland. Michael asks, what do I think the Green and Maori Party would say of the attempted assassination? I haven't heard their comments yet, and I think that at one level they'll have restraint, but I fear, Michael, that they would fit into the radical left's view. One, privately they probably would have hoped that he got killed because they hate him with a vengeance. Two, there would be a political element for some where they see him as pretty much the reason the Republicans will win. The other, of course, is that deplatforming dynamic we talked about. It's this, you have to remove those who oppose you. So I think, not good. It's not good. Amanda's telling me to check out Harris Sultan. I don't know, Amanda, who that fellow is, but I'll have to have a look. So Amanda's saying, couldn't believe the comments. Yeah, it's just been horrendous, those who have wished Trump's death. It's just it's a shocker. It's a shocker. I'm just looking back here. Oh, that's very kind of Anne Michelle. Well, look, you have to speak out. I mean, at the end of the day, woke culture, if this is what we're particularly referring to, woke culture is going to end in more violence. Because, and I'm sorry to get a little bit philosophical, it's sort of 8:15 on a Tuesday morning, but we've moved from disagreeing with ideas to disagreeing with our person. And some of you have followed my writings and talking before, but think of J.K. Rowling. In times past, if you didn't agree with her particular view on sex and gender, for example, you would disagree with her in idea. Whereas now, the woke, the progressives, the liberals, the left, whatever you want to term them, they just disagree with her entirety. So not only have they disagreed with her viewpoints, they're trying to cancel her overall. So the fact that she's the author of Harry Potter books, well, the books are now bad. So everything she has done, is doing, or will ever do is wrong and bad. So you've seen there's been that jump, if you will, from your ideas are bad to you are bad. And so in America, and we don't know what this young, is it Thomas Crooks, the 20-year-old? I mean, there's, if you will, another victim in the whole sad circumstance around the assassination. But long and short, you can see if you are one of these people who thinks that your views are so correct that you are morally able, I'm talking mainly to the likes of the Māori Party, Greens and Labour, and again the progressives and far left, all of these supposed peace protesters for Palestine. If they are so sure of themselves that they are happy to cancel people, shout people down, stop them attending meetings, then actually for some of the fringe, actually eliminating people is not a step too far for them. And, Look at history. Look at history. So yes. Rosie's asking, when is this Darlene Tana going to get the hint they don't want her? Well, this is the interesting thing, jumping quickly out of American politics, because we should actually look at some of New Zealand's politics. America's fascinating, but this is where we live. Well, first and foremost, the Greens have removed her from their political party. But the thing is, Rosie, that Darlene is still a member of Parliament. And so her leaving is not an easy thing, and in many ways, it's now up to Darlene of whether she chooses to leave Parliament or not. It's quite possible she might defect across to the Māori Party. There is something called the waka jumping laws. I won't go into that in detail today, guys, because I touched on it last week, but also it's a little bit nuanced in places. But it is a way to move an MP out of Parliament, but it can be quite difficult, and the Greens themselves hate the law. They hate the idea, so they would be whopping hypocrites if they used it. So I think long and short, Rosie, it's basically up to Darlene Tana whether she stays or not. And I saw yesterday evening's interview with her, and I can't help feel she's pretty aggrieved. And so look, who knows what's going to happen, but I can tell you it's all bad news for the Greens. Because ultimately this is like a wound, an open wound, which they just can't cauterize. Hey, just quickly jumping back to the Trump question, and then I'll touch on a few New Zealand elements. People are asking, how is this going to affect the election in the United States? I mean, firstly, it's like looking into a crystal ball. So I'm just going to take a quick sip of coffee. There we go. I think Trump was already on the way to win, is what I suppose I'm saying. And a big part of that was he was coherent. Unfortunately, when you think of that photo, I don't have a contrast, but you've all got in your mind Biden was it a week or two ago now since the debate? Weak, bumbling, confused. Obviously, we had the mix-up last week when Biden was at the NATO summit where he was calling Ukraine's President Zelensky. He was calling him President Putin. He mixed up his own vice president for Vice President Trump. So it's all, you couldn't get two very different images of defiant, strong, just been, survived an attempted assassination to a guy who can't even name the president of Ukraine, who's right in front of him. So huge contrast, but that was already there. So I think, if you look at the polls, Trump was just ahead, and critically in those swing states, including Ohio, which is why, again, this fella is very important to the Trump campaign. Ohio congressman, or as we'd know it as a senator, very popular. So I think Trump was already on the way to win. I don't think this will switch any Democratic voters. It's just not the way it is. The politics there is so partisan already. But of course, there's the swing voters. There's those who are not sure. And I think that will, these events will have a material impact. There was something on the news last night. It was only one person, but it was a guy saying he'd never registered to vote. But out of respect for the firefighter who died, he will be voting for Trump. The basis being that the firefighter was a Trump supporter. A swing voter's now going to kick in. So I think this will certainly make things a lot easier for Trump. He's obviously got his big convention this week. Let's see what he says. We can discuss that on Solid Ground next week. Sounds like Trump's going for a more conciliatory speech. You can imagine before the assassination he was going to go hard after Joe Biden. But not this time. I think he'll try to be the statesman. So fascinating times ahead. And finally, final point, I think Trump certainly was quick enough to understand the import of the moment. I mean, I do find this a remarkable image without being partisan. I mean, just from a photography point of view. But, this is, a minute, if that, after the shooting, he had the wherewithal to understand the enormity of the moment. And so, as you see, he told his detail to wait. fist in the air, crying to fight. Obviously, others are now trying to misrepresent that. I put it to you, if you've just been shot at, you're not going to stand up and start talking about rainbows and bunnies and chocolate. It's a fairly normal response. And watch too to see how much attempts there are to blame Trump. As I say, I'm disheartened by how many people I've come across wanting him dead, as if that's somehow acceptable. It'll be interesting over the coming days how many people try to blame him. Because I think personally there's enough blame to go around all political parties in the States. They're all quite negative. I think that's fueled a lot of this. But the Democrats and the mainstream media have a lot to answer for because they've demonized this man to such an extent. And we don't know the motive of the shooter. Better be really clear about that. But he's been so demonized that actually it seems acceptable to remove him. So anyway, enough on Trump. You may remember, and I'm going to see if I can get this to work, because back in New Zealand, we had this happening. So we're jumping back. It's about the Aotearoa ferry, and it's Aratiri ferry, sorry. And why I wanted to raise it in the New Zealand political space is, again, what media do and how things play out politically. And I think it's just very telling. So I'll see if I can get this to work for you.
It's true that the ferry ran aground when someone put autopilot on and went for a coffee.
I suspect it's just something that they've fabricated, or it's a rumour that they've heard in a pub somewhere.
They have their own way of doing things, but in terms of the government situation is that there's an investigation underway, and for me as a shareholding minister, I won't be saying anything more.
Maritime New Zealand saying conjecture is unhelpful, and Kiwi Rail confirming the right number of qualified people were on the bridge at all times.
There was nobody away having a Nescafe break.
Winston Peters is on radio today, giving no extra detail, but critical of Kiwi Rail's response.
So keep that in mind. So that was one evening. So of course the streamline of events without waving flags for New Zealand First, I'm not particularly interested in that. But more Winston Peters, New Zealand First, says, look, there was trouble on the bridge of that ferry which ran aground. Media, as we just played, jump in. Chris Hipkins there, the minister, everyone downplaying it, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. And then a couple of hours later, boom, out it comes. So I just thought it was, I don't know, it's a small point. I've possibly not so much over-egged it, but I just thought it was fascinating how, well, there's a tweet, there's a speculation, a suggestion, in this case from New Zealand First, media politicos first, reactions to try and downplay it. Maritime New Zealand was sidestepped the question, but then as the pressure built over about 12 hours, boom, all of a sudden it turns out to be a great comment coming through here. There is never a dull moment. You never underestimate old Winston, I have to say, on these things. But again, I just was struck how, well, there's a lack of generosity, and maybe I fall into that too with political commentary, but the first reaction of media was to not just deny what was suggested, but to, in a sense, attack him and his political party, that ad hominem that we're seeing across the board. National does it to Labour, Labour does it to National, most people do it to the Greens do it to everyone. But, basically he was right. I suppose that's exactly where I'm trying to get to, inarticulately at this time. He was right, and yet media and others were quite complicit to try and, knock it down. Speaking of media, I had to laugh, sadly, at this title. So I'll just get rid of that little thing at the bottom for you. This was in the Herald, but it's popped up through MSN. I don't know why it wants me to update my drivers. But anyway, saying that Parliament is a toxic workplace for women, wahine Māori, and women of colour. Well, breaking news for you, it's actually a pretty toxic environment for everyone. That's just another perfect example of sort of race-based or critical race theory-based reporting. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure at times, well, we're not actually sure, I know that my female colleagues will often receive much more nasty vitriol, which is really sad. But the idea that Parliament's just a walk in the park and a picnic for everyone except for women and Maori women, and it is just absolutely wrong. Parliament's an incredibly toxic place. I was there when terrible behaviours were happening from MPs, by the way, across the House, including, in my own party. In fact, one of my now former party leaders, her behaviour was just absolutely appalling, which is one of the reasons we got rid of her. So Parliament's a toxic place, and this is just the classic attempt by some, but you often see it manifested through media that you have to turn everything into a race or a sex issue. It's not. Okay, it's just not. So I just thought I'd mention that one because it's the sort of stuff that just annoys me. So I just thought I'd share that one. The other one I had here, well, I just thought it was a small thing. Well, no, actually, it's not a small thing. This is something to keep on your mind because I've seen a few people commenting about the Palestine question. Thomas Cramner, you might recognise his name. It's his. It's a sobriquet, a nom de plume. It's a good lord. What's the? It's a fake name, but he's also on News Talk ZB, or was, as a writer. Very smart politico. Long and short, he was emphasising some news that there are New Zealanders raising funds for a designated terrorist group, and Kiwi banks allowing that bank account to operate. Now, I haven't got an update for you, and I'll leave it there for you to read, but long and short, we shouldn't be raising funds for terrorist groups. Okay, you can have your views on the Palestine, Israel, Gaza situation, but we don't raise funds for terrorists. And our banks, by the way, should not be involved with that. So hopefully the likes of Kiwi Bank have seen sense. What he's mentioning at the bottom is that even though it's not designated officially here in New Zealand, it is in other countries, and they take a very, very dim view. I might add, because I had a few run-ins with our super fund and others when I was chairing the Foreign Affairs Committee, long and short, they were very, very quick to sanction, for want of a better word, Israeli banks and to, tut-tut at various groups. It'll be interesting to see if they do it in this case, which is blindly obvious. Again, some lunatic New Zealanders are raising money for terrorists and using Kiwi Bank. So if Kiwi Bank, if anyone there is listening, get a grip. And then I thought I'd share this. And I'm sorry I don't have the full context for this, but just keep in mind once a helipad, because I saw the other day on, I think it was LinkedIn, that Anna Mowbray, so part of the great Zuru, the toys for kids, plastic toys for kids. Anyway, she was talking a big game about Greenpeace's recent initiative to ban single-use plastic. So long and short, there's a push at the moment that Coca-Cola, Pepsi, lemonades, and plastic bottles need to be banned. And Anna Mowbray was right in there saying what a wonderful, wonderful thing, which is welcome to do. Said, I don't know if I'm a bar of soap. But then I noticed, and I'm sorry I don't have the screenshot, someone asked her, well, isn't it, and I'm putting this into quick words, but politely said, well, isn't it a little bit hypocritical that you're talking about banning single-use plastics, yet you are behind a toy company that uses enormous amounts of plastic? Well, her first response was to attack the questioner, how rude, stop trolling my page. So a very defensive, angry reaction to what actually was a very logical question. Somewhat tried to sidestep it, but I just thought that in itself was interesting. Again, it does display this sort of blinkered mindset that people have. Like, let's be consistent. If you want to ban plastics, that's fine. When you're the manufacturer of plastic toys, you might want to think twice. But then I thought, with all this focus on the environment, and it's why I shared this one, still wants to have your helicopter to fly in and out of your house there, and is at Herne Bay. Now, again, I've got no problem with that. Sorry, actually, let me dial that back a bit. I've got no problem with people flying, taking helicopters or planes. I think, like most Kiwis, I don't want a helicopter right next to me, but I just thought it was ironic. moral last week about single-use plastics. But you know what? Flying your gas-guzzling helicopter into that, I found that amusing. And then the last thing I thought I'd share, it's actually because you might be following, there's talk about, excuse the videos playing, I don't think I can control those easily from here, or maybe I can. Interesting when you think about Easter trading in New Zealand, where there's a push at the moment to basically get rid of public holidays, anything that's particularly got a religious bent, so you can go shopping and so forth on Easter Sunday and Good Friday. Australia's sort of going the other way, not around religious holidays as such, but actually they want to ban trade on Anzac Day. So I just thought it was interesting. It's certainly one of the critiques I would often put. I think the ACT Party are pushing this, that, you know, they want to get, it's always targeting religious holidays, of course, but why not Anzac Day? Sort of one of the rhetorical questions. Of course, I wouldn't want that. I think Anzac Day is quite a special day, as are the likes of Good Friday, Christmas Day, and so forth. But I just thought it was interesting as New Zealand's trying to liberalise and open everything up in the supposed name of freedom. The Aussies are going the other way. So some thoughts there. Hey, as always, just to let you know, as I come to an end today on this foggy Auckland morning, a whole lot more Family First based productions. There's Straight Talk, that's every Monday night. Bob leads a panel where we talk the issues of the day. Bob himself runs something called McBlog. You can access it through podcasts or, of course, on Facebook. He talks usually most days around a topic that catches his mind. My colleague Tumby does every week something called Pulse Point. She looks at sort of 4 or 5 key issues and just discusses them, particularly from a social conservative viewpoint, and often actually brings you news that you won't see or hear anywhere else. And then I also, not only am I working for the great team at Family First, but I also do a 2-hour radio show every week with the team at Reality Check Radio. So that's on a Friday morning from 10 till 12. You're always welcome to jump on and listen live, or of course you can always get to it afterwards in the replays. And as I say, I also do a Substack, substack.com. You can look up On Point there and take my thoughts. It's free. So yeah, so much content. What can we do but just relax at home all day, watch Family First TV, listen to RCR, and ponder life. Guys, it's been a pleasure to join you again this morning. Thank you for all the thoughts and comments, particularly to those who've been on the Family First page. Your comments have come through to me. Thank you for all of those. For others who are on the likes of LinkedIn, my own Facebook page, YouTube, I'll jump on later and have a read and comment those. I'll type my responses. But great to have you all here, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll talk again soon.